Mina had always lived in a small rural village. Her days were filled with the sound of cows, the smell of earth after rain, and the calmness of simple life. But deep in her heart, she dreamed of something bigger. She wanted to learn, to grow, and to prove that a girl from a small village could also stand tall in the world outside. When her father passed away, she carried his words with her. He used to tell her, "Education and courage can take you anywhere, Mina." Those words stayed like fire in her chest. She finished her studies with difficulty, walking miles to reach the nearest school, reading under a lantern at night, and helping her mother in the fields during the day. One morning, she stood at the bus stop of her village, holding a small bag with her clothes and a folder of documents. The villagers whispered around her. Some said, "She is brave." Others said, "She will return soon, the city is not for girls like her." But Mina's eyes were steady. She boarded the bus and looked out at the fading fields. The road was rough, but her mind was firm. After hours of travel, she reached the city. It was loud, filled with honking horns, tall buildings, and rushing people. She clutched her bag tighter. The city scared her, but it also excited her. She had come for her first job, an office assistant position in a big company. She knew it was not a high post, but to her, it was the first step. The next morning, she wore her simple cotton dress, ironed neatly, and tied her hair in a braid. She walked to the tall glass building where she was supposed to start. The doors opened automatically, and the cool air of the lobby touched her face. She looked around in wonder. Shiny floors, people in polished shoes, women in stylish dresses, and men in dark suits moved around with confidence. Mina felt small, but she whispered to herself, "I belong here too." At the reception desk, she introduced herself. The receptionist gave her a quick look, scanning her from top to bottom. Her village-style dress and sandals did not match the modern fashion around. The receptionist smiled politely but in a way that felt sharp. "You are the new assistant?" "Wait there," she said, pointing toward a corner. Mina stood quietly, holding her folder. She noticed how people passing by gave her curious glances. Some even whispered. A group of young employees looked at her and laughed softly. One of them said, "Maybe she lost her way. She looks like she came from a farm." Their laughter stung, but Mina kept her eyes down. When the supervisor arrived, he frowned. "You are the new girl? This is an office, not a village fair. Didn't you think of dressing properly?" His words were sharp, and his tone was filled with mockery. Everyone in the lobby looked at Mina, waiting to see how she would react. Her cheeks burned red, and for a moment, she wanted to run away. But then, she remembered her father's words. She lifted her head, and though her voice was soft, it was steady. "This is the best dress I have, sir. I came to work, not to show fashion." The supervisor smirked and walked away, leaving the others to laugh again. But in that moment, something changed in Mina. She realized that her journey would not be easy. People would try to break her spirit. But she also felt a spark of determination. She thought, "I will show them one day who I truly am." That evening, when she returned to her small rented room, she sat by the window and looked at the busy city lights. Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall. She whispered, "One day, they will not laugh. One day, they will respect me." She did not know then how true those words would be. For hidden in her story was a truth that no one in that office had guessed. Mina was not just an assistant. She was the chosen successor of the company's founder, her late father's old friend. The official announcement had not yet been made. Tomorrow, everything would begin to change. The next morning, Mina walked again toward the tall glass building. Her heart was heavy, but her steps were strong. She had cried a little the night before, but she reminded herself that tears would not solve anything. She had promised her late father she would never give up, and she would keep that promise. Inside the office, the atmosphere was the same: bright lights, fast footsteps, and people with polished shoes clicking across the shiny floor. Mina entered quietly, clutching her folder. She had come early, hoping to avoid attention. But some eyes still followed her. At her desk, a small corner near the files room, she sat down. The chair was slightly broken, and the table was dusty. It seemed like no one had used it for a long time. Still, she cleaned it with her scarf and placed her folder neatly. She told herself, "Work with dignity, Mina. This is your beginning." Her first task was to arrange the files in order. They were old and heavy, covered with dust. She lifted each one carefully, coughing at the smell. Some young workers walked past her and giggled. One whispered loudly, "Look at her. She is better fit for cleaning the cowshed." Another replied, "Yes, not for this office." Their words cut her heart, but she kept working. During lunch break, she sat alone with her small tiffin box. It had 2 chapatis and some lentils. She ate slowly, trying not to look at others. The employees around her opened fancy lunch boxes filled with colorful dishes, laughing together. One girl, wearing a stylish dress, noticed Mina's food and wrinkled her nose. "What is that smell?" she said loudly. "Oh, it must be her food. How can anyone eat like that?" Everyone at the table laughed. Mina felt her face burn, but she kept her head down. She told herself, food is not shame. It is hard-earned. Still, the loneliness pressed on her heart. Later in the day, her supervisor called her. He pointed at a large pile of papers. "Type these before evening. Let's see if you can even use a computer." His voice was filled with doubt. Mina had learned computers in her school, but she had never touched such a modern machine before. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the keyboard. The others gathered to watch, whispering and waiting for her to fail. At first, her typing was slow, but then her fingers grew steady. She remembered the hours she had practiced in the small village center, and her speed picked up. The supervisor looked surprised but said nothing. The onlookers left, a little disappointed that she had not made a mistake. Inside, Mina smiled faintly. It was a small victory, but it gave her courage. As the evening came, she packed her bag and walked outside. The city lights flickered, cars rushed, and people hurried home. Mina stood for a moment, watching the tall buildings shine against the sky. She whispered again, "One day, I will also shine among them." Back in her rented room, she wrote a letter to her mother. She told her about the office, the laughter, and the tasks. But she did not write about the humiliation. She didn't want her mother to worry. She ended the letter with, "I will work hard, and soon you will be proud." What Mina did not know was that, at that very moment, in a top office of the same building, 2 senior directors were discussing her. They had received instructions from the company's board to quietly observe the new girl. She was not just an assistant. She was the hidden heir, the future CEO. "Does she know yet?" one director asked the other. "No," came the reply. The chairman wanted her to experience the real world first. He believed she must feel the struggles of an ordinary worker before she sits on the highest chair. The first director nodded. Wise decision. But we must watch carefully. She is under test, though she doesn't know it. Far below, in her small rented room, Meena prepared her simple dinner of rice and vegetables. She ate alone, thinking of her father, and then sat with her books, studying late into the night. She believed she was only an assistant, fighting against mockery and loneliness. But fate was already weaving her story. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and slowly, the people who laughed at her would face the biggest surprise of their lives. The next few days were not easy for Meena. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise, cooked her own breakfast in her little room, and then walked to the office. Her clothes were always simple, neat, and clean, but they never matched the glitter of the city fashion. She was reminded of this often, not with kind advice but with cruel jokes. One morning, as she stepped into the office, she heard two boys laughing behind her. Look at her sandals, one whispered. Do they even sell such old styles anymore? Another added, maybe she made them herself in the village. Their laughter followed her like a shadow. Meena's hands tightened around her folder, but she did not turn. She had learned that silence was her strongest shield. Still, their words sank into her heart like thorns. At her desk, she focused on her tasks. She arranged files, typed letters, and made copies. She worked faster each day, and though no one praised her, she knew her skills were improving. She kept reminding herself, I came here to learn, not to compete in fashion. But the office atmosphere grew heavier. The young employees had turned her into a subject of entertainment. Sometimes they would drop papers near her desk on purpose, just to see if she would bend to pick them up. Sometimes they would talk loudly about parties and branded clothes, making sure she heard every word. The only person who showed a little kindness was the peon, an old man named Ramesh. One afternoon, when Meena was struggling to carry a pile of heavy files, Ramesh came forward and helped her. He whispered, do not mind their laughter, child. I have worked here for 20 years. People here judge only by what they see on the surface. They forget that a person's worth is deeper. Meena gave him a grateful smile. His words were like water to a thirsty heart. Thank you, she said softly. That evening, something unexpected happened. The supervisor gave her an important task. Prepare tomorrow's meeting room, he ordered. Arrange the documents and make sure everything is in place. His tone was not kind, but Meena took the responsibility seriously. She stayed late in the office, working carefully. She arranged the chairs, set up the projector, and checked every file twice. She wanted it to be perfect. By the time she finished, the office was nearly empty. Only the security guard was left. She walked out into the cool night air, tired but satisfied. The next morning, when the directors entered the meeting room, they found everything neatly organized. The files were in order, the presentation was ready, and even water glasses were placed correctly. One director raised his eyebrows in surprise. Who prepared this? He asked. The supervisor hesitated, then said, the new assistant, sir. The directors exchanged looks but said nothing. They made a note quietly. Meanwhile, in the office, the mocking continued. During lunch, Meena sat alone as usual. This time, a young woman named Priya walked over with her friends. She looked at Meena's plain tiffin box and said loudly, you know, in the city, people usually eat food from restaurants. Not this. She wrinkled her nose at the simple chapati and curry. Her friends laughed, and Priya smirked, enjoying the attention. Meena's chest tightened, but she kept eating calmly. After finishing, she closed her box and said quietly, "Food does not need to be expensive to be good. It needs love." Then she walked away. Her words were simple, but they left a silence behind. For a moment, Priya felt uncomfortable, though she quickly covered it with laughter again. That night, as Meena sat in her small room, she thought about the day. She felt tired, almost broken, but deep inside, a flame kept burning. She remembered her father's words again, "Education and courage can take you anywhere." She whispered to herself, "I must keep going. One day, they will know who I am." Far above, in the director's office, the two men discussed her again. "She is enduring more than we expected," one said. "Yes," the other replied. "And she does not break. That is important. But how long will we keep the secret from her?" "Until the right moment," came the reply. "She must learn what real struggle feels like. Only then will she value her place as the leader." Meena, unaware of this hidden truth, closed her eyes to sleep. The sound of the city hummed outside her window. Tomorrow would bring more trials, but she was ready. She had promised herself never to give up, no matter how much they mocked her. What she did not know was that her patience was slowly building the respect of people who mattered most. And soon, the ones who laughed at her would face a truth they never imagined. The days in the office moved slowly for Meena. Every morning, she walked into the building with her neat braid and simple cotton dress. She carried no expensive perfume, no polished handbag, and no stylish shoes. But she carried something stronger: determination. Still, the mockery did not stop. Some people in the office treated her presence like entertainment. Whenever she passed, whispers followed. "She looks like a maid," one boy said. "Why would the company even hire someone like her?" Another laughed, "Maybe they needed charity work." Meena heard every word, and though her heart hurt, she kept her head high. She told herself again and again, "They can laugh at my clothes, but they cannot laugh at my work." One Monday morning, the supervisor called a team meeting. A new project was being planned, and important files needed to be arranged in just one day. The employees groaned, it was a heavy load. The supervisor looked around and said sharply, "Meena, you will handle the filing and reports." Some laughed under their breath. "She will drown in papers," someone whispered. Meena accepted the task quietly. She carried the files to her desk and began working. Her fingers moved fast, her eyes sharp. Hours passed, and while others complained and took breaks, she worked without pause. She skipped lunch, her stomach growling, but she did not stop. By evening, the files were not only arranged but also labeled clearly. Every detail was in order. The supervisor came to check, expecting mistakes. But when he saw the perfect arrangement, his eyes widened. For a moment, he had no words. He cleared his throat and muttered, "Not bad." It was the first time he did not mock her work. That night, as Meena walked back to her small room, she felt a quiet satisfaction. No applause had been given, no praise spoken, but inside her, she knew she had shown her strength. The next day, something unexpected happened. The director of the department, Mr. Khanna, walked through the office. He rarely noticed assistants, but as he passed Meena's desk, he saw the neat rows of files. He stopped. "Who organized this?" he asked. The supervisor hesitated. The new assistant. Meena. Mr. Khanna nodded slowly. He glanced at Meena, who stood up politely. For the first time, she saw respect in someone's eyes, even if just for a moment. He said, "Good work." Then he left. Those two simple words warmed her heart more than any grand compliment. It was proof that her effort was not invisible. But not everyone was happy. Priya, the stylish young woman who often mocked Meena, felt annoyed. She whispered to her friends, "So what if she arranged some files? That does not make her smart. She will never belong here." The others agreed and laughed. Their jealousy only grew as Meena slowly began to gain small recognition. One afternoon, when the office printer jammed during an urgent moment, everyone panicked. Important papers needed to be printed for a client meeting, but the machine refused to work. People shook it, pressed buttons, and shouted at each other. Meena, standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. In her village school, she had often fixed the old printer whenever it broke down. She gently opened the machine, removed the stuck paper, and adjusted the settings. Within minutes, the printer was working again. The office fell silent for a moment. Then one man muttered, "How did she do that?" Another whispered, "She must have guessed." But Mr. Khanna, who had witnessed it, said clearly, "Good presence of mind." Meena nodded respectfully and went back to her desk. She did not smile or boast, but inside her heart, she felt another small flame of strength. That evening, when she reached her room, she thought of her father again. She looked up at the stars from her window and whispered, "Baba, I am trying. I will not stop until I prove myself." Far above, in the boardroom of the company, the directors discussed her progress again. "She is showing qualities we hoped for," one said. "Yes," the other agreed. "Patience, skill, and humility. The chairman's plan is working. But the mocking she faces, is it not too harsh?" The first director shook his head. "It is shaping her. When the truth comes out, her strength will shine even brighter." Unaware of this hidden plan, Meena prepared herself for another day. She ironed her simple dress and polished her sandals. She knew the world still laughed at her, but she also knew that step by step, her light was beginning to shine. And though she could not see it yet, the day was coming when the same people who mocked her would stand in silence before her true identity. Meena's days in the office had become a strange mix of pain and strength. Every morning, she faced the same stares, the same whispers, and the same cruel laughter. But along with the pain, there were now tiny moments of recognition. A nod from Mr. Khanna, a passing "well done" for her organized work, or even the silence of people who once doubted her abilities. Still, the mockery had not ended. In fact, some employees had grown sharper in their remarks. They could not bear the idea that a simple village girl was slowly gaining respect. One afternoon, the office buzzed with excitement. A big client meeting was scheduled for the next day, and everyone was preparing. The young employees dressed their best, wearing perfumes and carrying files with pride. Meena, as usual, wore her plain cotton dress and braid. Priya, the stylish woman who often led the mocking, saw her and smirked. "Oh dear," she said loudly, "tomorrow is a grand meeting. Should we buy her proper clothes? Otherwise, the clients might think we brought a servant." The office erupted in laughter. Even some who had grown quiet earlier joined in. Meena felt her cheeks burn, but she held her head high. She said softly, "Clothes do not work for clients. Work does." Then she walked away. Her words left a sting, but Priya only laughed louder. She thinks clients will care about her? She will always be nothing here. That night, in her small room, Meena broke down for the first time in many days. She cried silently, hugging her pillow, asking herself why people could not see beyond her dress. But after some time, she wiped her tears and whispered, "No, I will not give up. Baba, I will show them." The next morning, the office was tense. The big meeting was only hours away. The conference room had to be set, the files arranged, and the presentation checked. Everyone rushed about. The supervisor handed Meena a stack of reports. "Make sure these are placed in order on the table. Do not mess this up," he said coldly. Meena nodded and worked carefully. She checked each page twice, placing them neatly. But while she worked, Priya and her friends watched her. One of them whispered, "Let's see how she handles pressure today." As the clients arrived, the office filled with formality. Suits, greetings, and polite smiles surrounded the room. Meena stayed in her corner, quietly doing her part. She did not seek attention, she only wanted to complete her duty. But just before the meeting began, something shocking happened. Priya accidentally spilled coffee over one of the important reports Meena had arranged. The brown stain spread across the white pages. Priya gasped dramatically and said, "Oh no. Meena must have kept it carelessly. Now look what has happened." The supervisor's eyes turned cold. "Meena," he shouted. "Do you even know how serious this is? One mistake can ruin everything." The clients were already seated, watching the scene. Some employees shook their heads, whispering, "We knew she would cause trouble." Meena's heart pounded. She wanted to defend herself, to say the truth, but she stopped. She knew if she argued, they would not believe her. Instead, she quickly pulled out the extra copies she had prepared the night before. She had stayed late to print them, just in case something went wrong. She placed the fresh, clean reports on the table and said calmly, "Everything is ready, sir." For a moment, the room fell silent. The supervisor blinked, surprised. The clients nodded in approval, impressed by her preparedness. Mr. Khanna, watching closely, felt a spark of admiration. The meeting went smoothly after that. Meena sat quietly at the back, unnoticed by most, but inside her heart, she felt a quiet triumph. She had turned humiliation into strength. After the clients left, the supervisor avoided her eyes. He did not praise her, but he also did not scold again. Priya, however, was furious. She whispered to her friends, "She thinks she is smart. But she will never rise above us. Never." But deep down, even Priya knew something had changed. Meena was no longer just the village girl. She had shown grace under pressure, and people had noticed. That evening, in the director's office, the secret conversation continued. "She handled herself well," one director said. "Yes," the other replied. "Even when blamed unfairly, she did not lose her calm. That is leadership." "She is almost ready," the first director said quietly. "The time to reveal her identity is coming." Meanwhile, Meena returned to her small room and sat by the window. The city lights flickered outside, and the noise of cars filled the air. She whispered again to her father's memory, "I will keep going, Baba. They think I am weak, but one day, they will know." She did not realize that the day of truth was closer than she thought. And when it came, the laughter that haunted her would turn into silence, followed by respect she had long deserved. The morning sun rose golden over the city, but inside the office, the atmosphere was cloudy with gossip. Everyone still talked about the previous day's meeting. Some admitted quietly that Meena had saved the situation, but most gave credit to luck instead of her hard work. Priya, especially, could not rest. She whispered to her friends, "She thinks she is clever, but soon people will see she is nothing. A village girl will never be more than a mistake in this place." Meena, sitting at her small desk, heard the whispers. She bent her head lower and focused on her work. She told herself again, "Let them talk. Words cannot stop me. Only my actions will speak." That day, Mr. Khanna called the supervisor to his office. "The board will be visiting this week," he said firmly. "Everything must be perfect. I want all employees prepared." The supervisor nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." When he returned, he gathered everyone and announced, "The board members are coming. This is serious. No mistakes will be allowed." His eyes landed on Meena, sharp and cold. "Especially you. Stay out of the way. Do not embarrass us." The office laughed softly at his words. Meena lowered her gaze, but deep inside, something stirred. She thought, "One day, they will not dare to speak like this." As the week passed, the preparations grew intense. Employees worked late nights, rushing to finish reports and polish presentations. Meena was given the smallest tasks: photocopying, arranging chairs, and carrying files. Many believed she was unfit for anything bigger. But Meena did every task with care. She checked each paper twice, cleaned the meeting room until it shone, and prepared every file neatly. Though her work was unseen, it became the quiet backbone of the office. On Friday morning, the day of the board visit arrived. The office buzzed with nervous energy. People wore their best suits, women wore elegant dresses, and perfumes filled the air. Meena wore her clean, simple cotton dress. She did not shine like them, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. When the board members entered, the atmosphere shifted. They were powerful figures, respected by all. Employees bowed, greeted them, and tried to look important. Meena stayed near the corner, unnoticed as usual. But then something unexpected happened. One board member, an elderly man with kind eyes, glanced at her. His face softened. He leaned toward another director and whispered, "Is that her?" The director nodded quietly. "Yes. That is Meena." The elderly man's eyes grew moist. He remembered the old chairman, who had passed away months ago, and his last wish that his dear friend's daughter, raised in the village, should become the next leader of the company. He had said, "Let her walk through fire first. Only then will she know what it means to lead." The employees had no idea that the board members were not here only for business. They were here for Meena. As the meeting began, Priya tried to impress the board with her stylish English and sharp gestures. Others showed charts and spoke about profits. The board listened politely, but their eyes often drifted to the quiet girl sitting at the side. At one point, Mr. Khanna asked for a set of reports. Panic filled the room when no one could find them. The employees looked at each other, confused. Then Meena stepped forward softly and said, "The reports are here, sir. I prepared them last night." She handed the files neatly, every page in order. The board members nodded in approval. One of them smiled and said, "Efficient." The employees glanced at her in surprise. For the first time, they realized the girl they mocked might not be as simple as they thought. But Priya could not hold back her anger. After the meeting ended, she cornered Meena near the pantry. "You think you can steal attention with your tricks? Don't forget you are nothing here. You will always be a servant." Meena looked at her calmly. Her voice was soft but strong. "Respect is not stolen, Priya. It is earned." Then she walked away. Those words echoed in Priya's ears, filling her with silent rage. That evening, when the office emptied, the directors gathered in the boardroom. "Tomorrow," one of them said, "we announce it. The staff must know who she truly is." "Yes," another replied. "They have tested her enough. She has shown patience, strength, and humility. The time has come." Far away in her small rented room, Meena sat by the window again. She held her father's old photograph in her hands. Tears touched her eyes as she whispered, "Baba, I hope I am making you proud. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I will not stop walking." She had no idea that the very next day, her life would change forever. The same people who laughed at her would be forced into silence when the truth unfolded. The next morning, the office was buzzing with energy. Everyone was dressed in their best clothes, trying to impress the board members who had returned for the final announcement. Employees whispered about the village girl, Meena, wondering if she would make another mistake. Priya smirked as usual, confident that Meena would fail or be embarrassed. Meena walked into the office quietly, her braid neat, her cotton dress simple. She carried her files, papers, and her quiet determination. She did not notice the whispers, the glances, or the smirks. In her heart, she only carried one thought: I must do my best. Baba's dream lives through me. The board called everyone into the conference room. Employees arranged themselves nervously. Mr. Khanna spoke first. "Thank you all for preparing so well. The board has been watching closely. Today, we make an important announcement." A heavy silence fell. Employees exchanged glances, some curious, some anxious. Priya leaned forward, her smirk firm. "This is going to be amusing," she whispered to a friend. The eldest board member, the man with kind eyes, stood up. He cleared his throat and looked around the room. His gaze stopped on Meena. "This young woman," he said slowly, "has been quietly observed for the last few weeks. She came to us as an assistant, but she is far more than that." Whispers spread across the room. "What does he mean?" someone asked. The board member continued, his voice strong but gentle. "She is the daughter of my old friend and chosen by the late chairman to be the next CEO of this company. She has walked through the fire, endured ridicule, and worked tirelessly without complaint. Today, we reveal her identity officially." The room fell completely silent. Priya's jaw dropped. Other employees stared, unable to believe what they had heard. Some muttered, "The CEO? That girl." The board member pointed toward Meena. "Meena, please come forward." Meena's heart skipped. She walked slowly to the front, her eyes wide in shock. She could hardly believe what was being said. The whispers of her colleagues, the laughter she had endured, they were all frozen in the room now. "Meena," the board member said kindly, "you have proven patience, humility, and intelligence. These are the qualities of a leader. It is my honor to announce that you are the new CEO of this company." For a moment, Meena could not speak. Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief and triumph. The years of struggle, the humiliation, the lonely nights, they had all led to this moment. Priya could only stand there, speechless. The confidence and mockery that once gave her power vanished in an instant. She realized that the girl she had laughed at, humiliated, and underestimated had become the most powerful person in the room. Meena raised her head, her voice steady as she addressed everyone. I came here as a simple assistant, not because I wanted attention, but because I wanted to learn and do my best. I faced challenges, I faced laughter and ridicule, but I never gave up. Today is not only my achievement, it is proof that hard work, courage, and patience can change everything. The room was silent for a moment, and then applause erupted. People stood, clapping for her, some with tears in their eyes. Even those who mocked her before could not deny her strength. Respect replaced their laughter. Mr. Khanna stepped forward. Meena, welcome. Your journey has inspired all of us. You are not just the CEO, you are the example of true leadership. Meena smiled softly. She felt the warmth of her father's memory in her heart. She whispered silently, Baba, I did it. I have made you proud. Later that day, as she walked through the office in her new role, people bowed slightly, greeted her with respect, and sought her guidance. Priya approached her hesitantly. Meena looked at her with calm eyes and said softly, respect is earned through action, Priya. It is never too late to start. Priya nodded, unable to find words. She understood that Meena's journey was far greater than appearances or mockery. By the evening, Meena stood by her office window, looking at the city below. The same streets, the same lights, the same noise, but she had changed, and so had the people around her. She felt a quiet strength, a mix of pride, humility, and determination. She knew that the challenges of leadership were only beginning, but she was ready. She had learned patience, courage, and grace. She had proven that even a girl from a small village could stand tall, and not just survive but lead. And as the sun set, Meena whispered one last time to her father's memory, we did it, Baba. We really did it. The laughter, the mockery, the doubts, all of it was gone, replaced by respect, hope, and a bright future.